Welcome, intern, to your mandatory company training. Here you'll learn the most vital survival skill: listening. Unlike other horror games, Lethal Company provides no predictive threat assessments or scripted scares. Every threat you encounter is dynamic. As such, the audio is not cosmetic. And remember, the monsters are listening too. This briefing will sharpen your ears, not your trigger finger. You'll learn how the environment speaks, how echoes reveal paths, how teammates' voices guide and endanger you. We'll explore academic theories from specialists such as Karen Collins, Jesper Command, and Michael Nitsch. Don't worry, intern, we'll translate their academic theories into practical terms to keep you alive. Let's teach you a valuable lesson: that sound is your best friend and worst enemy here. Interpret it correctly, and you might just meet your quota. You'll quickly learn that the scariest threats aren't visual, they're auditory. A groan from the next corridor, a pipe bursting, a door opening unexpectedly. These seemingly small sounds form the backbone of survival in Lethal Company. The environments you scavenge in employ what we like to call unscripted sound design, a system where audio emerges dynamically based on player actions and environmental interactions, not pre-planned events. Karen Collins highlights that the auditory perspective in games is dynamic, controlled by the player's movement and positioning. Unlike films or certain horror games where your audio is fixed, your experience constantly shifts, placing you in control of what you might miss. Stephen Poole emphasizes, any sound can become a clue, a spur to action. Consider a scenario where you hear distant footsteps or the subtle creak of metal. Each sound demands immediate interpretation and decisive action. Do you hide, press forward cautiously, or retreat entirely? This constant, ambiguous decision-making enhances your fear but also sharpens your perceptiveness. Jesper Command introduces the concept of the diegetic barrier, the boundary between sounds that naturally belong within the game's world and those that are artificially added for the player's experience. In Lethal Company, this barrier barely exists. As Command notes, only by replaying a level can the player discern between the real warning sounds and those that are not. This uncertainty intensifies paranoia. Every noise might be critical, urging vigilance. Your surroundings become an audio landscape. Closed rooms dampen sound, creating a sense of isolation,
whereas expansive spaces echo,
magnifying your vulnerability. Alison Gazard explains how sound helps visualize and create landmarks for the user. Your ears are your primary navigation tool in Lethal Company's dimly lit, procedurally generated environments. Michael Nitsch elaborates, our bodies hear before they see, and acoustic signals are constituent parts of our understanding of our surroundings. You must rely on your innate auditory instincts, shaping your experience uniquely every time you play. Your orientation manual likely omits one critical feature. Your microphone is permanently active and
the voice can attract deadly attention.
In Lethal Company, voice chat is an integral gameplay element, directly impacting your survival based on volume and proximity. Voices fade with distance and are changed by in-game obstacles, like
company-issued items.
Voice chat here is completely diegetic. Speaking into your microphone translates directly into your character speaking in-game, affected realistically by distance and environmental obstructions. Michelle Chion introduced the concept of the audiovisual contract, which describes how audiences may accept sound and image as unified experience. In Lethal Company, this contract extends to player communication. When you hear a teammate's voice echo down a corridor or muffled behind a wall, your brain treats it as real spatial information concerning the layout of a map or interior. If you know a particular interior layout, you can assume what's happening where based on the reverb or the way your teammates' voices are muffled. Voice becomes embedded in the game world as a mechanic and often occurs subconsciously. Gazet describes sound as a verbal GPS, enabling players to orient themselves through complex environments. Here, your teammates' voices serve precisely this function, guiding and coordinating, but simultaneously increasing risk. Certain monsters can hear you talking, so every spoken word must be calculated, a tactical decision balancing clarity with caution. The constant tension of managing your voice, whispering or staying silent exemplifies the intricate relationship between auditory strategy and gameplay. Your voice is your most direct survival tool, but potentially your greatest vulnerability. Survival requires understanding your adversary's distinct sound signatures. Each entity in Lethal Company has unique behaviour and different sound effects, and understanding these sounds can save your life and improve your gameplay experience. Sound, when used strategically, becomes your best defense. To understand how the game's sound has been engineered to help employees survive, let's look at Guillaume Rougerard's framework for sound in horror games. He identifies 5 key functions that audio performs. These aren't abstract ideas, they're the logic behind your survival. Spatial. Identifying the distance and direction of threats through sound. The environmental soundscape helps you triangulate. If noises get louder or move from left to right, you know something is changing position. Spatial sounds are your substitute for radar in a game with very little visual information. Temporal. Focusing on the when of a sound, not a where or what. You may recognise behavioural patterns like the rhythmic steps of a forest keeper on patrol. An auditory pause can be more alarming than any loud noise. Preparatory. Audible cues indicating immediate danger, such as storm sirens, ambient hums, or escalating music. A good example is the Jester, which plays a tune from its crank so employees can tell how long they have before they must leave the facility. Identification. This includes all the unique enemy sounds that allow threat differentiation. The Nutcracker has imperial boot-filled stomps and wooden squeaks. The bunker spider scuttles quickly with its many legs and ties a web. The hoarding bug has a range of distinct layered clicks and light taps when it walks. Stephen Poole describes mastering these sounds as experiencing the pleasure of patterns. You may even be able to identify the danger of a creature just by the nature of its noises, even before you see it. Progression. Increasing audio intensity signals urgency in game progression, helping players manage pacing and risk. The general ambience may ramp up to signify imminent danger while being chased or during a difficult level. These 5 principles illustrate how understanding auditory signals transforms your reaction from instinctual fear into strategic knowledge, which is essential for your survival. Here at the company, mistakes are expected. What matters is whether you learn from them. Lethal Company doesn't hold your hand. It doesn't give you tutorials or glowing objective markers, it gives you feedback. Clear, consistent, and terrifyingly honest. Each failure is a lesson. You might not realise that dropping a metal tool makes a noise loud enough to attract an eyeless dog. Or your audio may fade, and someone may be watching you. Or that saying,
Are you safe?
too loudly over your walkie is a great way to get your teammate killed. Christine Jurgensen distinguishes between game space, the rule-based mechanical system, and game world, the fictional immersive setting. In Lethal Company, sound belongs to both. It tells you a monster is nearby and feels like something a character would hear in that world. Mark Grimshaw argues that sound plays a central role in creating player presence. not just by simulating reality, but by demanding physical and emotional responses. Sudden sounds don't just inform, they provoke reactions. Freezing, crouching, fleeing. Sound becomes a direct interface between the game and the body's reactions. And over time, these reactions become defined. You start recognizing patterns and building a mental library of sounds and responses. That's how Lethal Company trains you, through failure, feedback, and fear. Nesbitt and Ing emphasize that informative sound design isn't just about mood. It actively helps players make decisions under pressure. In Lethal Company, these cues become an auditory interface, offering immediate, repeatable feedback through enemy sounds, environmental changes, and spatial audio. Perrin builds on this, noting that cognition arouses emotion and emotion organizes perception. The emotional weight of sound, anticipation, fear, panic, doesn't just shape how we feel, it directly alters how we interpret threats and make decisions. One of Lethal Company's greatest strengths is the fairness of its sound design, which quietly supports new players without lowering the stakes. It creates a learning environment, not a forgiving one, but a readable one. Every time you die, you likely missed a cue. You heard something you didn't understand, or you didn't hear something you should have. That sting of failure becomes a lesson. Stephen Paul reminds us that sound is essential because a video game player needs to use information from the senses to decide what to do next. In Lethal Company, your senses are your curriculum. Janet Murray describes good interactive design as offering the satisfying power to take meaningful action and see the results. This quote defines player agency, which is precisely what makes Lethal Company thrive. Did you peek around a corner and a monster saw you?
Did you speak too loudly near the company building and get an unwanted surprise?
The feedback is instant and precise, often delivered first through its audio. Even when the game is cruel, it's rarely arbitrary. That's important because horror often leans on helplessness. Lethal Company leans on clarity. Its fear comes from knowing you could have prevented what happened, if only you'd listened more carefully. Gazard writes that audio helps construct landmarks in invisible space. These aren't just navigational, they're also educational. You start marking your memory not by visual cues but by sound. The hallway where the bracken first hissed, the cargo bay where someone's scream cut out over the walkie. Over time you begin to hear patterns, and from patterns you build strategies. You don't need faster reflexes, you need better ears. In this sense, sound is the game's fairest mechanic. Everyone hears the same things. What separates employees is how they respond. Alright intern, let's review. You've learned that at the company, sound is not aesthetic, it's structural. Every hiss, echo, scream and silence is a vector of information, and if you listen closely, you'll realise it's telling you everything you need to know to survive. The horror of Lethal Company is not built on jump scares or orchestration, it's horror built on systems. Collins, Poole, Crammed, Nitch, Garrett, Murray and others all point towards the same truth. When sound is dynamic and responsive, it becomes more than immersive, it becomes interactive. Lethal Company places fear in the player's hands, giving them control over what they hear, how they interpret it, and what they do next. It's a horror game that respects its players enough to let them learn the rules one terrifying mistake at a time. It's also fair. Every employee hears the same world. What separates the living from the dead is how well they understand it. Lethal Company doesn't focus on fast reactions or scripted sequences, but on attention, memory, and choice. So next time you're on a mission and you hear a ringing in your ears, don't just assume it's nothing. Stop and listen carefully. Now get scavenging, intern. You don't want to miss the quota.